So today, I'm sitting down with someone I've known since he was a kid, Roland Wang. Over the years, I've watched him grow into a man who faced more than most people will ever. He walked away from a high-profile career in the US to move halfway across the world to Thailand. He stood by his wife through the years of depression. He watched his father battle Parkinson's, and just a few months ago, before Rebuild Dad even started, Roland was fighting pancreatic cancer. But in the middle of that battle, he did something extraordinary. He started a YouTube channel documenting his fight, not for attention, but to leave a legacy for his son, and helped others facing the same pain. Before we dive in, wherever you're listening, find the subscribe button, the heart, or the like icon, and click it. It tells the platform this is good content. And that's my promise to you, to deliver something real, something that helps you start again stronger. As Asians, we're not raised to talk about pain. We stay quiet, we don't disturb the peace, we don't air our dirty laundry. But today, Roland opens up about what happens when silence turns to survival, and how finding your voice might be the first step to healing. So if you've ever been through something that broke you mentally, physically, or spiritually, stay with us, because Roland's story is proof that no matter how dark it gets, you can start again stronger. So Roland joins me from Thailand just weeks after finishing treatment. His body is still healing as we record this episode, but his faith and his focus on being a dad were stronger than ever. He opened up about the fight for his life, the legacy he's building, and what rebuilding really looks like when the odds are stacked against you. So let's dive in. So hey, Roland, how are you?
Doing pretty good.
Good. So Roland, I know I've known you since you were a kid. I still remember almost 20 years ago, you helped me hang some drywall and mud the drywall for the dog training center, right? Back in
Yeah.
Houston. You've always been like that guy who quietly showed up and get things done. And you were working on a pretty good job out here in the United States before moving to Thailand, your wife's hometown. So about what, 7 or 8 years ago that was? Maybe 9 now, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what made you
coming up on 9? Yeah, go ahead.
coming up on 9? Okay. So what made you take that leap?
Yeah, so like you said, it was a pretty decent job working for casinos and stuff in Vegas. I had actually just started a new job, and at the time, my wife was working at the Wynn Casino dealing cards. And, she came down with the case of viral meningitis. And viral meningitis is inflammation in the lining of the brain, and it causes like chronic migraines, like 24 hours a day. Like she was miserable. And like me having a headache a little bit is already annoying. But just imagining what a migraine feels like and having it 24 hours a day, it's just like, it's ridiculous. But that pain led to things like anxiety because she thought she was going to die. It was just so bad. I think we had a standing date night, which was like every Friday night around 11 or 12 at night, we would end up at the hospital emergency room. I remember when she got it, I think we spent Christmas and New Year's in the hospital because she was just having terrible migraines, and we were trying to find a way to fix it, and they just couldn't. It was like we went to all sorts of specialists and were at the hospital constantly, and I think we racked up close to $1 million in hospital bills. So it was just insane.
Wow.
But yeah, anxiety, depression, and I had just started a new job, and I had to tell them like, hey, I gotta take care of my wife. So my job at the time let me work from home for 6 months. And it was just like, my wife was just miserable, and I was just there working next to her. And, that was sustainable for a while. But after 6 months, I was like, okay, I think I need to go back to the office. And I remember like the first day back in the office, she literally called me and said, come home now. I think I'm going to die. And I was like, well, okay, I guess I got to go home.
Yeah.
So my boss went home. But that went on like off and on for a while. And it was just in and out of the hospital and all these really urgent calls. And, for me at the time, like I probably wasn't the most conscientious or empathetic spouse. Thinking back on and reflecting on it, I got to the point where I was like, hey, you're not going to die, right? Like, you have anxiety, you have depression, it's all in your head. You need to just toughen up and stuff like that. And thinking back and reflecting, that definitely wasn't the way to handle it. But I was a different person at that time, and we all evolve and grow as we age. But yeah, that's literally why we ended up in Thailand, is because my wife was just like, I'm gonna go to Thailand and seek treatment there. I want to be closer to family. I want to be able to speak my own language with the doctors and feel more comfortable, because she didn't feel like the standard of care or in the U.S. was comparable to Thailand. Like, in fact, she just didn't feel like they cared at all. And after living in Thailand for 9 years and seeing the medical treatment here, it's night and day. The level of service and level of care is much higher.
So she was right.
Now, she was right, but like, I'm not saying like the treatment is better. It may or may not be maybe on par, but like the service is 100 times better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it was like, I'm moving to Thailand. That's it. So she came first, and I started applying for jobs right away. And I was
I
like,
see.
okay, and did a couple interviews, and ended up landing at a travel company based in Bangkok
Mm.
and working in HR and
Okay.
doing analytics, because I'd been doing data and analytics pretty much my whole career. And just
Mm-hmm.
I guess was blessed and got lucky, and got a decent job working in Bangkok that has sustained us for 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
So Jib is much better now. Like, the
Mm-hmm.
migraines, they're not as bad as they were before.
Mm-hmm.
9 years later, I have a 2-year-old son.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a crazy ride. I never thought about even visiting Thailand, but ended up living and working here. It's been pretty
Uh-huh.
insane.
And how has living there reshaped kind of who you are now today?
I think living in Bangkok is kind of like living in San Francisco, but hotter. But I think living in the US, I always felt like a minority. And no
Mm.
matter where I lived,
Mm.
where living in an Asian country, I don't feel like a minority anymore. It's like,
Even not speaking the language?
I do speak the language a bit, so I can
Okay.
communicate, but like, there's a lot of Thai Chinese. I think I
Right.
read some statistic that outside of China, like, the most Chinese people are in Thailand, just because of the Thai Chinese heritage. Looking like me, they all think I'm
Yeah.
Thai. They're like, "Oh, you look
Okay.
so Thai," and I'm just like, I'm pretty sure I don't. But there's a lot of Thai Chinese people in Thailand, so you can't
Mm-hmm.
really tell the difference. So everybody just automatically assumes I'm Thai. But I think
Mm-hmm.
growing up, like, at the time when I grew up, where there was like racism, there was gangs, there was all those types of things, and it was just like, it kind of made me who I am, right? But living in Bangkok in Thailand kind of washes a lot of that away, because I think even at the time, I probably carried even a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, right? Just kind of like the way you grew up, the things you encountered, the prejudice and all that stuff, and then when you come here, it vanishes. And in fact,
Right.
like, you're like everybody else. And Thai Chinese is actually almost like being white in the US or
Yeah.
anywhere in the world, or most places in the world, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
In
like
the
there's
Western
there's
world.
no
Yeah.
yeah, in the Western world.
Yeah.
Other parts too. I think there's benefits everywhere working as an
Mm-hmm.
expat, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's completely different night and day. So, I got to
Mm-hmm.
let go a lot of that baggage that I carried in the past, and felt like I was on even footing with everybody, and I was able to, I would say, do pretty well in my career here,
Mm-hmm.
which has led to, being able to have access to more things, and like education for Silas. And in order to have Silas, we actually went through 11 rounds of IVF, I think. Yeah, because we just couldn't conceive, and it would have been impossible in the US, just because the cost would have been much higher, 3-4x.
Right.
And then at the end, we actually had to use a surrogate, just because it
Oh,
just wasn't possible, right? So
okay.
so yeah. So the
Did the
amount of money
meningitis
that would
have
have
anything
cost.
to do with that?
No, it didn't actually. It was more of like, I guess, the internal mechanics, the organs and stuff like
Oh,
that,
okay.
and it just wasn't working. But yeah, it was like 11 IVF rounds over 5
Wow.
years, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
that has its own problems. All the
Of course.
hormones and the cycles, the up and down roller coaster ride. I
Yeah.
seriously, on the last round, I was like, Jib, do you still want to have kids? Like, I think
Yeah.
we've been trying to do this for 5 years, so we keep on doing it. But do we actually still want to have kids? And she was just,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
she was determined and pulled us through and ended up using a surrogate. And thank God we have Silas now.
Uh-huh. And so when you think back to the transition, kind of leaving the comfort and security of the US, your career, how did you rebuild or restart stronger once you got there to Thailand?
Yeah, I think I've been pretty resilient in that respect. Because from Houston, I went to Las Vegas. From Las Vegas, I went to San Francisco. From San Francisco, went back to Las Vegas. From Las Vegas to Thailand. So it's like I've had to kind of rebuild at different companies multiple times. So I kind of am used to it to a certain extent. I had no
Mm,
idea what to expect when I got here. Like, I was thinking
right.
hangover movies. But like when I got here, I was like, oh, it's like any major city without that chip on my shoulder or not thinking minority. It actually made it easier and maybe more free to kind of excel to a certain extent. And
Hmm.
I had good mentors and good bosses, thankfully, as well, that kind of shaped me in a way. I think just giving me the skills, teaching me, how to work in the corporate environment in Thailand, and those types of things that really just equipped me to be on the right track to get to where I ended up. So yeah, I
Hmm.
think it was really, I would say there's luck to it in that, you have the right people at the right time. And, it's a bit serendipitous at times because, I feel like God kind of brings people into my life at the right times when I need them. And,
Hmm.
He's always shaping or molding me to develop in the right ways. And I've been blessed in that, I've always had the right people come into my life at seemingly the
Hmm.
right times. Maybe I didn't know at the time, but like looking
Yeah.
back, you see that pattern of people entering your life and, helping to shape you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, being grateful for what's around us, right? And what you're provided when you don't realize you're being provided is a great
Definitely.
thing. Need to, a lot of these folks that are listening to this podcast are in need of this hope, right? They just need to open their eyes and realize a lot of things are happening for you, not to you, right? And when you're in the mindset of things are happening to you, then you get stuck, right? You're gonna talk about more of your fair share of the difficulties in life, and part of what we need to do is to remember that life happens for us, right? And a lot of these things make us grow stronger, gives us more experience, and makes you stronger, right? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and when it kills you, and that's kind of the point. So you talked about your wife's struggle with the depression and anxiety, and you stood by her through all of that. And that kind of loyalty, takes a lot of strength. You said you weren't quite prepared for it at first, right? And so what was that season like for you emotionally when you're doing that transition, or and after you figured out that you're kind of a jerk at the time?
When you say your wedding vows, you say in sickness and in health till death do us part. You're usually not asked to prove it right away. It was kind of like, I think we were married for maybe a year and then that happened. And it was just like, okay. So I think in times of crisis, in times of need, in times of doubt, it's what I do or what has gotten me through a lot of things is I end up leaning into my faith more. And I think that my faith has carried me through a lot of difficulties, whether it's heartbreak or sickness or really anything in life where there's like a serious challenge. And sometimes I feel guilty about it because I like at those times I'm not like the most faithful person. I'm not like thinking about God every day, going to church every day. But in times of need, I can always lean into my faith because
Mhm.
I guess the way I think about it is God is like the Father, right? And as a father, you love your children. And I think about it with my son is like if my son needed something from me, came to me and asked me for help, there's very few instances where I wouldn't do it, right? Like,
Mhm.
or I would reject them and say, hey, you haven't been doing your part. I'm not going to help you or something like that. It's just like my son's my life and I would definitely do anything for him.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think leaning into my faith is really what happens when I've always come across things. And at that time, it was just like, okay, my wife is sick. I
Hmm.
made a vow. God is testing me, molding me. This is a test, and I will do what I need to do to get through it.
Hmm.
But I think in practical terms, you can lean into your faith when it gets really bad, but on a day-to-day basis, it's difficult, right? Like I'm trying to focus on work. I'm trying to be a provider for my family. And growing up the way that I did, I had some ideas about what a man is, what a provider is, right?
Absolutely.
And like it's basically I provide so that you guys love me. That's my job, right? I make money so that we can have a good life, so that I enable things to happen, right?
Right. Right.
That may that may come at a sacrifice of, my time with you. That may come at a
Hmm.
sacrifice of my own health, but those
Hmm.
types of things. So it's just like it's understood that as a provider, I don't complain. I just provide and my family benefits from it and they should love me as a result. Right. And
Hmm.
that's kind of like my idea of a man growing up and how I treated my wife. It's like, hey, I'm trying to provide for our family and
Yeah.
I get that you're in pain. I get it that you have anxiety. I get that you have depression, but I'm trying to do my job. And you're keeping me from doing my job and supporting and providing for this family. And at
Yeah.
times that caused me stress because
Mm.
the conflict between the man I'm supposed to be and the man that she
Yeah.
needed, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't come to realize it till later. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm a provider, but it's not a transactional world. Like it's not that I provide so my family loves me. My family loves me regardless, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I should have showed more empathy. I should have really understood her pain more and then been more emotionally supportive. I was I was a different person then, right?
So how
And
did
there's
you
a little
come to
bit of
this
regret there.
realization?
I think probably more around now.
Okay.
After her facing this type of challenge where you
Uh-huh.
have near death or are facing mortality, you start reflecting and thinking about these types of things.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe even before that, I think working and leading large teams at work probably also made me be more empathetic as well. Just because at my work I was leading operational teams, which operational teams require a different set of skills, right? If you have a high performing, high achieving team, a lot of the ambition and motivation is there. It's inherently built into them because they're hungry.
Right.
When you have a highly operational team, they need more empathy, they need more engagement with the work, they need more meaning tied to what they're doing. And it made me
Mm-hmm.
think more from their perspective and be more empathetic to their
Mm-hmm.
needs, which
Oh
I
wow.
think
So you
helped me. Yeah.
so that carried over from your HR work.
Yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
HR made me have more of a heart, I guess,
Huh.
because, I guess that when you think about HR, it's about protecting the company, but it's also about having a heart and thinking about the employees more and thinking from their perspective, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which made me become more empathetic as a result, I think. And then,
Okay.
upon reflection after facing mortality, you start thinking about these things even more and it compounds and it snowballs and you start having regrets and guilt and all that type of stuff, which
Yeah,
I had to deal with and go through also. But I think,
absolutely.
yeah, empathy, I wasn't necessarily born with a strong empathetic streak. And
Mm,
even now, I wouldn't say that I'm like an empath or something like that, but I
mm,
think about it more. I'm more conscious of it in terms of
mhm,
like when
mhm.
I'm talking to my wife or interacting with people.
So did you ever apologize to her?
Not for that time, actually. I have
Okay.
apologized I've
Many other
definitely
things.
apologized to my wife for numerous things, but
Right.
not specifically that. I need to make a note of that to do that because I think,
That's
yeah,
not an easy thing to realize, right? I mean, looking back, that's not an easy thing to look. I mean, that's straight up staring into a mirror, right? And say and picking yourself apart, right? So well, let's go back again real quick. Like when you first moved to Thailand, how'd you build your circle of friends or your network, your tribe that you can sit down and have nachos with or whatever? Just decompress a little bit, and because you had to deal with your wife's situation at the time, and you're in this completely new land, right, where you didn't have this tribe.
Yeah, I think one good thing about being an expat, working in an international company and being an expat, is that all of the expats there are in the same situation, right? They
Okay.
all came from some other country. They're all trying to make friends. They're all trying to build that tribe, that village that
Mm-hmm.
can support and sustain them. So it actually wasn't that hard because it was just kind of like even in HR, there was already groups of people where they hung out, went out together, and was just like
Mm-hmm.
adding another person to the group and evolving to friends outside of work and all that stuff. I think most of the people I know are still with the company that I was working with, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
don't really
Okay.
because I have a wife now. I have a child. When I'm outside of that, I'm just spending time with my wife or just family, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
but I think just the expat community in an international
Mm-hmm.
company tends to make it
Mm-hmm.
easier to interact, and the company facilitates events and activities. And being in HR,
Mm-hmm.
you're actually facilitating those events. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's really easy to come in contact with most of the company, whether I'm like
Right.
facilitating onboarding for people joining the company or
Mm-hmm.
hosting one of the engagement activities or those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
You're just connected to more people like from
Mm-hmm.
by the nature of the job I was doing.
I see. I see. The reason I ask this question is a lot of these men out here dealing with, whether it's a separation or divorce or some kind of loss. And what happens with men is they do exactly what you just did, right? Mentioned, which is their only circle was their family, where the wives had the network of friends that they have coffee with and, go hiking and that type of stuff where they're much more social. So a lot of the men here end up alone, especially after a divorce, because they never kept in touch with that network. And as well as a lot are, they're considered themselves introverts, right? Or don't even remember how to make new friends, right? Because they just haven't had to do it in a long time, besides for business, right? Yeah, I mean, of course, business wise, if you're working and if you always have those people, but you don't get the truth teller, right, who will tell you right in your face, hey, you screwed up and you need to get this XYZ fixed, and they'll, or that person that you could just hang out with, to decompress a little bit. So, one of the things that we're teaching on this channel is how to recreate that tribe, how to create that network. And it's great that you had that opportunity when you got there, that you found like-minded people or people who were stuck in kind of the same situation. But um, a suggestion would always be your family is absolutely important, but you also need your own tribe that you're able to have your own circle of friends, because a lot of these men also after the divorce, they pretty much lose half of their friends and half of their family, if not all. Because you don't know what type of people look at you slightly different, and there's there are lies and stories that get told about many of these men. So that kind of took you on a little loop on that one, but that's kind of one of the reasons why I was asking how you built that network. So looking back, do you think walking through her darkness prepared you for your own storm later?
I think it did. I mean, I think there's learnings there because I guess there's always two sides, right? There's the person taking care of the sick person, and then there's the sick person. And having experienced what it's like on the other side, and knowing
Mm-hmm.
like the how difficult it can be to be the caretaker. And at the time, I was just working and taking care of my wife, and my wife is like taking care of me and my son, and like
Yeah.
so it's a little bit different, but it's very difficult to take care of a sick person because when you're sick, there's different stages, right? There's before you accept it, and while you're going through those stages, you can be a pretty mean, unforgiving, unempathetic, for lack of a better term, jerk.
Grumpy.
And being the person that has to absorb that and be, I guess, empathetic enough to be like, hey, I know it's because of the sickness. It's not you. You're not, you know, well, maybe I can be a jerk, but like you're sick, you're lashing out, you hate the world because well, you're like, why me? You're angry at everybody, and you just need a way to vent it. And unfortunately, I'm the target of that venting, right? And to be able to understand that that's what she's going to have to deal with, and potentially even regulating myself not to do it so much, or trying to catch myself as much as I can so that I'm not doing that. I think that's the benefit of really seeing both sides, because as a sick person, yeah, it sucks, right? Like you got something that you probably were very unlikely to get, and you're just like, why me? Why
Mhm.
now? And you're just
Right, right.
angry. But you always have to remember that there's somebody on the other side of that too that has to take care of you. And being able to be empathetic towards that and being able to appreciate that is pretty important. And I think having been
Mhm.
on the other side, it gives me the ability to do that. If I've never been on the other side of that, could just be lashing out and just being grumpy, like you said, all the time.
Yeah, yeah. So what's the biggest takeaway you learned about love during that chapter?
Think probably that love isn't transactional. It's not, I do this for you, so you love me. It's more like, I love you, and this is how I show it. Like, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing. I think, and probably about life in general. Like, I think thinking about life in a transactional way is probably how I thought about everything before. It's like, how do I get the value that I'm going to get for the work that I'm doing? Or if I give something, I should
Mm.
get something of equal value or something like that. Whether it's
Mhm.
love, whether it's money, whether it's, yeah, some type of value,
Mhm.
right? And it's like a trade. But life is much more than just a transactional world, right?
Right,
A
right,
lot of
right, right.
times you will give more than you receive, and that's okay. And sometimes you'll
Mhm.
receive more than you get, more than you give, and that's okay too. But it's just like, I think the things that matter are really more around like the connection, the deepening of relationships, that you're able to build in life, rather than thinking more about even trades, I guess.
And your faith is Christian, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So growing up in a Buddhist household, right? Our thoughts were very very similar in a way that a lot of what you're giving is you're giving to give. It's your choice to give, right? You're not giving for their sake, you're giving for your sake, right? More than anything. And so if you're looking at it from a standpoint that you're giving it to them, however they receive it, that's on their part. And if they choose to give you something, that's their choice to give to you. So it's not so much a transaction because we're not in a business, right? I mean, even in business, actually, a lot of transactions that we do, a lot of it isn't a transaction per se, right? I mean, of course, your standard sales cycle or whatever, that's normal. But I mean, a lot of the things we do for our customers, a lot of it provides clearly way more value than what you're returning back in terms of a financial compensation. But that also brings other opportunities as well. So it's great that you brought that up. That there are a lot of folks stuck in the habit where they're saying it's very transactional, very conditional, more so than it's your choice whether or not this is something that you want to do. And so, Roland, you come from a family built on grit, right? Your dad, Uncle Sam, has been battling Parkinson's for what, more than a decade now. And your mom's been right there beside him through it all. And your brother Timmy, too, also, right? A two-time Olympian in table tennis. And with that kind of discipline and perseverance, it clearly runs through the family, right? But as Asians, we're not usually open about tragedy, right? We stay quiet. We don't disturb the peace. We kind of, keep it in the closet, right? What happens in these walls stays within these walls. So, what made the change for you, the decision to start talking about the tough times?
So I think of with the whole cancer thing. Initially, when I started the channel, it was more about just keeping like friends and family updated, because I didn't want to explain to everybody what was happening over and over and over and over and over again. Like
Okay.
and kind of reliving it every single time I said it, because I was
Right.
still processing it, dealing with it emotionally, and it just, I couldn't.
Right.
So I started the
Right.
channel and started sharing the channel and just updating every day so everybody could just see what was happening.
I see. I see.
And then people that I didn't know started consuming the channel and started commenting. And
Mm.
some of the comments were like, "I'm inspired by your story. Like, it's
Mhm,
really
mhm.
helped me." And I was like, "Oh wow. Like I can actually help people just by sharing what I'm going through." And well, that's really why I continue to do it at this point, because
Mhm.
there's other people going through tragedy or maybe even a similar circumstance that benefit from just hearing about how we're dealing with it, how we stay strong, how we stay positive, and even though it hurts. And if I can help even one or two people, that's great. That's already enough. But like the channel has kind of taken off a little bit, and a lot of people are watching, and I just feel like it's a bit of a calling to be able to share my story and my pain and how I'm getting through it so that others can benefit from the same.
Mhm.
There were times where I was just like in the morning, I'm just like, I'm tired. I don't know if I want to keep on doing this. And at times at that like that, it was weird too because again, I leaned into my faith. I was like, okay, God, is this really
Mhm.
what you want me to keep on doing? Do you want me to keep on trying to help people in this way? And it was
Mhm.
really weird because like for I think it was a week. So every day there's a daily devotional in the Bible app that I use, and I swear it was like having a conversation with God because I would say one thing like, I don't know if I should keep on doing this. I'm tired. I think it's
Mhm.
starting to make me a little bit anxious. And
Yeah.
then the next day, the devotional would be like, being a Christian, you have to take up your cross every day and, be a, and fight the good fight. And I'm just like,
Mm.
what? And it's like the next day. And it continued and persisted for like a week to like
Yeah.
every time I had a question, I got an answer. And I was just like, okay, this is scary, right? Like, I know it
Mhm.
could
Mhm.
logically and being analytical, I'm like, okay, it's all random, it's all coincidence. But like the older I get, when I look back at things, it seems
Mhm.
less and less random, right? It's just,
Mhm.
I don't know, you start
Mhm.
seeing all these patterns, the people coming into your life, the miracles, that the odds, and you're just like, how can all of this be random, right?
Well,
So,
that's
but
why they
yeah,
call it
that
faith, right?
yeah, exactly. And that's really why I keep on doing it, and why I'm passionate about it, sharing more of what I've learned in life, and
Mhm.
really trying to help as many people as I can.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
even had like crises of faith. It's just like, hey man, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to become a YouTuber, or am I just trying to
Mhm.
tell my story? I think it's difficult because like should I be advertising? What should I be doing? I have no idea. It's like, if does it dilute my message, or the reason why I'm doing this? And I had to wrestle with all of that, and it's just kind of like the reason that I do it is to help others. I don't really advertise or anything too much, I guess. Not
Yeah.
traditional types of marketing. I just keep telling my story each day, and people can choose to watch it if they or not. And I'm just okay with the fact that if I'm helping people, then it's good. And I
Right.
don't know
Right.
how many people I help. I don't know, like, how I'm helping them, but every once in a while I get these comments that are like, this really helped me today. And that makes it all worth it.
Well, it's very interesting that you bring that up because one of the reasons why I started Rebuild Dad was because I went through a lot of different, different things, and that'll be in different episodes. And part of seeing your video pop up reminded me like I need to get on this thing because that you know getting it out there in public, especially our exposure now is at 100,000 people. uh, it was, to say the least, right? Because my personal background, right, is I always did businesses where I could hide in the back, right? Like we help cities with the smart city stuff. Why? Because you don't know who Jerry is, right? I don't need to sit in public and tell people who I am, right? I drove cars that, like Audi S4 twin turbo at 600 horsepower, but when you looked at it, it looked like a regular car because I didn't need people to know, right? I didn't want people to know, right? And so it's such a different thing to do this on YouTube or TikTok or wherever else this podcast is going to end up on. But what you're doing now is also helping folks who run into this situation, right? And of course, we're going to link your channel later. But a lot of folks, and I know you're slightly younger than me. How old are you now? 40-ish?
42
No,
now.
42. Okay, yeah. So because yeah, I remember you were a bit younger, but a lot of folks are facing it, especially at this age, right? Between the 40s and 50s, because now you have to deal with your parents as well, right? You're in Thailand, but your parents start aging. You need to know what to do with them, right? Your dad's got Parkinson's. I mean, your mom's able to take care of him now. 5 years from now, what happens when she needs to be taken care of too, right? These are all very tough decisions that everybody needs to make. And then, I mean, you went from and now you're a dad of 2 years, right? And then you went through your cancer scare, and now you're still going through recovery, and then it's like, oh, what about this kid? What do we do with this kid that we just spent 5 years trying to have, right? So
Yeah.
through a surrogate, right? So I mean, it's like one thing after the next, and it's how to remember that you can start again stronger and have that faith that something's there, whether it's faith in God or faith in the universe or whatever you want to have your faith in. You just have to have faith that everything happens for you and not to you. And so another question I had was, did you have anyone you could lean on, or someone you could sit with those nachos or coffee with to work the rough parts out and kind of handle it? Or did you have to handle it alone and it was just you and your wife during all of this?
Yeah, I think, well, family was primarily number one because I think as soon as I found out, because well, let me rewind a little bit. The way that I found out is that we were doing a liver biopsy, and the reason was because I was feeling like bloating and discomfort, and I had fallen off of a mechanical surfboard and at a company event, and like
Mm,
got a little bit of whiplash, and shortly after I felt like this expanding of my liver. So went to the hospital and I grew up Asian, and I'm the last person that would ever go to a hospital, even if like unless my leg was missing or something like that. But this
yeah.
time it got so bad to where I waited 2 weeks, then went to the hospital. But
Mm,
after going to the hospital, they did some scans, and they were like, well, they did some scans, and then they were like, we need to do a liver biopsy. And then, so the way that I found out was I was lying in bed one day watching TV, and Jib walks into the room, and she has a phone with her with my brother on FaceTime. And
mm,
then like she's crying, my brother's also crying, and I'm just like, what the hell's going on? And I had done an MRI probably a day or two prior, but I thought that I didn't know at the time, but an MRI was already like 99+% conclusive if you have cancer or malignant
oh,
cancer. I didn't know that. I thought, okay, I'm gonna get a biopsy, and it's gonna tell me I need to exercise, I need to eat right, and the same thing my doctor's been telling me for a long time. And
mhm.
my wife comes in with my brother and goes, I didn't know how to tell you, but I already know you have cancer. And I was just like, what do you mean? I thought we were waiting on the biopsy. Like, how do you know? And she's like, well, the MRI is already 99 point whatever percent conclusive. And I was like, what? And then my brother's like, yeah, man, it's stage 4. And I was just like,
Oh,
is that bad? Is that the top or the bottom? And he was like, no, that's the
mhm,
worst one. They said you're gonna
mhm.
die within 6 months. And and like I said, I was just laying there watching TV, and I was just like,
Huh.
okay. And I was just like kind of
Wow.
laying there, just like, okay, so okay. I don't know what to think about this.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then that's kind of how I found out. But
Uh,
at the same time, they already knew. So I think shortly after, it must have been 2 weeks. My aunt was in Greece at the time and just flew
mm,
directly to Bangkok to be with me. And then my brothers, Matthew and Timmy, came over
mm.
probably a couple weeks after that, and it was just us holed up in a
Okay.
small condo for probably probably about a month, just
Mm,
spending time with each other and kind of working through some of the emotions. Like went to go see a therapist, and
mm.
yeah, just kind of working through everything. So I had family support almost right off the bat, and then
Okay.
we asked for help from a therapist that I had been seeing over time, who's a expert
Mm,
in cognitive behavioral therapy. So the whole
okay.
CBT thing.
Right.
So yeah, I had a lot of support in the beginning, right
Mhm,
away,
mhm,
and the company was very generous and giving me the time off to deal with all of this stuff. So
mhm, mhm.
I've been fairly blessed to be able to have family there so quickly, have a company that supports me, and to also not have as many of the symptoms that a lot of people have when they get this type of cancer. Like
Right.
people with stage 4 cancer, they're like in serious pain and hospice, whatever. And
Mhm.
I really didn't have too many side effects other than I had digestion problems. And
Okay.
I was also blessed that I was able to get treatment almost right away. I think like
Mhm.
found out, and then within 4 weeks, I had already gone through 3 rounds of treatment.
Oh,
2 rounds
wow.
of chemo and 1 round of targeted therapy with
Mm,
it's called PRRT, so it's just targeted therapy for
right.
but yeah, I got care right away. My family was
Mm,
there. My company was supportive. So I was very blessed and fortunate. The other thing is, I'm 42, so like I'm also a
yeah,
lot younger than most people.
absolutely.
I think the average age is probably somewhere in the 60s.
Right.
So at 42, I can also tolerate treatment a lot better. And
That's right.
the thing about pancreatic cancer is that you don't really exhibit symptoms or many
Mm,
symptoms. And there's like different parts of the pancreas you can get cancer on, and it can be different. But unless you have jaundice, nobody really knows,
mhm, mhm.
right?
Or
And the
fall
thing
off a
is,
mechanical a mechanical surfboard. That's how you
that's
find it.
exactly it. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
blessed to fall off a mechanical surfboard. Like my company was, my team was hosting an event for the company, and we were there doing the security walk, and then you were like, okay, let's try some of the activities. And then
Mm.
like I had gotten a foot massage, and my feet had lotion on it, and
Oh,
then they were like, let's try the surfboard, and then I didn't think so. Got on the surfboard, and then like almost
boom.
immediately slipped off. Uh,
Mm.
and then didn't feel anything at the time because the party goes to like 3-4 a.m. But
Yeah.
then I went home, and the next day I was like, a whiplash.
Mm.
My rib cage feels like it's being pushed out, and I was just like,
Mhm.
oh man, this is terrible. And then me being me, still waited for 2 weeks, and
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
went to the hospital, and then they did the scans, and thank God the doctor at the time was suggested more X-rays and more scans,
Mhm.
and we caught this. And it's
Right.
most of the time when they catch this, it's accidentally when they catch it early, unless
Yeah.
you experience jaundice. So, been blessed in many ways throughout this entire ordeal to be able to be treated quickly enough and to have family to support me and a company that
Absolutely.
supports me as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, my situation was slightly different. We were actually moving back from Taiwan, and my wife Lisa was packing up with the kids because we were moving back because it's post COVID, right? 2021. Finally able to move back to the U.S. And so, they were arguing or screaming or whatever it is, just kind of being noisy. So I was like, I'm going to go out and take a walk. So we're in Taoyuan in Taiwan, and I'd
Uh-huh.
go out for a walk. And about maybe 10 minutes later, all of a sudden, I can't see. My eyes go dark, right? See completely black. And then my eyes started tearing. And I'm like, hold on, that's not right. I could feel it there, but I can't see anything, right? It's just like dark and kind of fuzzy. Fortunately, I was probably 3 blocks from the hospital. So I kind of made my way to the hospital,
Oh my
walked
God,
in,
yourself?
they put me in a
Okay.
chair, and they're like, do you have your insurance card with you? And I'm like, no. But they got me in the emergency room right away. They got me in an MRI, and then they found out I had something called SAH, which is basically a brain aneurysm. So I had my basically it erupted. And then the doctor looked at me and started speaking to me in Chinese, basically said, 50% of people who get this die within 10 days. And so my answer to him was like, couldn't you tell me this on the 11th day? Right? Do I really need to know this right now? So they kept me in the ER for about 8 hours. At that time,
Wow.
wife and the kids never realized I didn't notice I was gone, because I'm usually gone to the office or whatever. It happened to be a weekend. So, anyways, they tell me there's no surgery that can be done. Give me some meds to help, because otherwise it's brain surgery, right? You can't really get in there, and they're like, wait it out. And so I made my way home. That I could start seeing again. Everything kind of cooled down. They said I had to control my blood pressure. I need to hold my stress level down. A lot of that stress had to do with a lot of yelling, and a lot of Asian families. The moms tend to talk much louder, like 2-3 times louder than normal families, right? And that's not in the household that I grew up in. Right. Our household was not like that, but that's what I married into. And so to me, that created more stress than anything else. And my wife and the youngest daughter were flying out on June 19th. And this was like May 28th or something ish. So I didn't want to mention anything because if I did, then it would be the typical Asian mom, which wife, whatever, would be, I'm not leaving and you have to do this and that and more screaming and more stress rather than help. Right. So in my case, I didn't go for the support. I went for the silence, which was better for my healing, right? That's my case. But and then I did not tell my parents either because I figure there's nothing they can do about it, right? If it's something that they can help with or something that can be done, it'll only worry them. Again, this is an Asian thing, right? Like, why have other people worry about you if there's nothing that they can do? It's that protector. It's that, how do we, we're providers, right? And so how can I provide for my family if I'm dead? So best way is not to die. And how do I not die? Not be around them. It's very strange, right? But not be around my wife at the times. Anyhow, I digress. Back to your story. But I figure I just chime in and let you know, since we haven't talked in quite a while, and this has got to be new to you.
Yeah,
Because this
that's
actually,
insane.
I actually haven't told very many people this story. Now there'll be a couple thousand, maybe a couple 100,000 people know the story, but I haven't told this story very much. And actually, probably more than half my family, cousins, uncles, whatever, don't know this happened. Right. So it's an Asian thing, right? That you don't air your problems, especially for people who can't do anything about it, or it doesn't help them. Right. So anyway, back to you. So how did opening up change how you healed?
Yeah, so first of all, that's crazy. Like, I don't know what I would do if all of a sudden I couldn't see, like, and then I was in the hospital for like a really long time in the day and just didn't tell anybody. That's some real strong Asian upbringing right there.
Yeah, yeah. You
And
suck it
probably not
up.
just Asian, probably just male in general a lot of times. But like that's one of the messages I try to share. And it's really like people that have this stigma about seeking help, they're the ones that need it the most. Like we should all go see
Mm,
doctors. We should all try to find out these types of things and be open to talking about it because from a medical perspective, it may be an outlier. 99% of the time, it's probably fine, but that 1% is a life saved, right? So like we should go
yeah.
to the doctor. We should talk about these things. We should be able to be vulnerable because there's such a high incidence of depression and uncontrolled anxiety and all these things in the world, and a lot of it is
Mhm.
just because we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to share. And but yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, you're right. I had no idea and I would have been freaking out.
Well,
Um,
unfortunately, men don't get as much support as women do. Actually, not just culturally, I guess across the board, right? Because you're supposed to man up, right? And whether it's supposed to or not, you also don't get the same type of compassion. You won't, right? It just depends on the situation. Majority of time, you're not the one getting the compassion because you are expected as a society, right, to be the protector, to be the warrior, to just suck it up, buttercup, right? Man up.
yeah,
There's a reason
no,
why that term's
seriously.
there.
No, but I mean, like, I think in sharing what I found, and part of the reason I did the channel initially too, is there's a lot. It's cathartic to share, right? Because like the reason that, or not the reason, but like when we don't talk about it and when we don't share, we don't process. We kind of just keep pushing
Mhm.
it down deeper and deeper until one day it
Right,
erupts, right?
right, right.
And I found it cathartic to really just share. Like as soon as I started sharing, it was just kind of like, I can do this, and I feel much
Mhm,
better after talking about it, right?
mhm,
You
mhm.
may not get the sympathy, you may not get the, oh, I feel so bad for you for whatever reason. But sorry, the act of actually talking about it with someone helps you process these types of emotions so that it's not just bottled and pushed down and gonna cause you problems one day. I think
Absolutely.
yeah, that's really, as soon as I started doing it, it was like, okay, I can do this. Whether it's with my therapist, whether it's with my wife, whether it's with family, like we started having these like really uncomfortable honest conversations, but like after each one I felt better because it's like each one progressively released this weight or released this pressure. Timmy was being a jerk one day and messing with me because when he likes to tell me he loves me because he knows
Mhm.
I won't say it back,
Yeah,
right? Because Asian families, we don't say I love you, we do
yeah,
something, right?
that's right.
And it
Service.
was just like, yeah, and it was just like I love you. And I'm just like, mm-hmm. You know, and he did that for a while, and it was super annoying because it kind of kept pressing at this pressure point where it's just like, I
Mm.
don't feel comfortable saying this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's to my parents, my brothers, my wife. For some reason, it's
Mm.
okay with my son, but like,
Mm.
besides that, nowhere else is it okay, or do I feel natural saying, I love you? And
Yeah.
it was just one of
Yeah.
those things. And it just the way we talked about it, it's just like, why is that? I know I love
Yeah.
everybody. I love my parents. I'm like, but why can't I just say it? Right.
Yeah.
And lots of conversations like that. And, even about faith, like when my brothers were in Thailand, I decided to get baptized because I had just never done it. I was going to have
Okay.
my grandfather do it because he was a pastor,
Mm.
but he had passed. And it just
Mm.
never was a priority. And then I was just like, well, I got my brothers here, I got my aunt here from Canada. I was like, why not? So I just like I called up or I messaged my church. I was like, hey, can you come baptize us? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then so they came and baptized us at the pool of my condo because I
Oh.
was going through treatment.
Mm.
And it was like a beautiful thing where we professed our faith and all that stuff, but it was just like we're having all these deep and honest conversations, a lot of times uncomfortable, but with each one I felt better about being able to talk
Mm.
about it, and I felt closer to my family and my brothers and my aunt. And it's this crazy thing where it's like I had to reshape my idea of what a man is, right?
Right.
And they talk about toxic masculinity, and there's different flavors of that, but this aspect of it where men have to be strong, men can't show
Mm.
emotion, the man is only loved because he can provide.
Mm.
Those toxic ideals I had to reshape. And it's like a man can show emotion. A man can
Mhm.
show vulnerability. A man, just because he's not making $1 million a year, doesn't mean his family should love him less.
Mm. Yeah.
It's all of these ideas that I grown up with, like I gotta do this, I gotta do that, because that's what a man is, right? And now it's just like,
Mhm.
no, that's not. I mean, like we're human at the end of the day, and we have needs, whether they're emotional needs or whatever, but like we can be human. And
Mm.
the previous idea of what a man is just wasn't really human. It was just like
Mhm.
you were this, I don't know, you were just this idea that where you just provided some value, and outside of that, that was all you were put on earth to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you think about it, think about your parents' strength and, Timmy's discipline. And now, how those have shaped you to rebuild yourself after all these hardships. Do you think it helped you, kind of shaped you for being who you are, watching that?
I think so. I think I end up learning a lot from examining how other people's lives have turned out with different choices that they've made, right? With Timmy, it was really kind of the sacrifices, right? Because like to be a competitive athlete, there's a lot of sacrifices that you have to make. The time, primarily, your body, because for any professional athlete, they're very seldom going into competition without some type of injury. And then like the experience of I guess going to school, having friends and having lunch together, going out to movies and stuff like that. He missed out on a lot growing up, right? And those types of things, I'm just like, okay, yes, I learned a lot from that. And how I would want Silas to be, or what I would want to provide for Silas. What experiences would I want him to have, and how I would think about him making that decision. And would I be as supportive as my dad, or
Yeah.
would I have said, "Hey, no, you should go to school, and this can
Yeah.
wait," right?
Yeah.
I think what I took from that is like, hey, life doesn't need to follow necessarily a planned trajectory that everybody else is doing, right? Because if you want
Yeah.
to live an extraordinary life, you can't do it by leading up to that with what everybody else is doing, because you'll end up in the same
Right.
place as everybody else.
That's
Right.
right.
So whatever Silas wants to do, I just have to nurture and encourage that.
We'll get into the nitty gritty, right? Then came the cancer, pancreatic, one of the toughest battles there, take me back to the moment. Well, I guess you already told me how you got that diagnosis. That was your brother and your wife on the phone, right? Or your brother
Yeah.
on the phone. So how did your wife handle it? Especially while she was still fighting her own demons and, finally got the kid now, right? And dealing with
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I think having Silas is probably the biggest blessing that's helping us both. It helps me in deriving meaning and motivation from wanting to beat this, because obviously I want to see Silas grow up, and that was
Yeah.
one of the biggest challenges initially, because my son's 2, and the prognosis on something like this isn't great. So I was just like, man, like I might not see him, because initially I thought I only had 6 months to live. And
Mm.
then later to find out that the type of cancer that I have is called neuroendocrine tumors in my pancreas and a large part of my liver, actually progresses slower than the more common one. That
Mm.
mine, I think, is only like 5% of cases. So I went from like thinking I had 6 months left to, 3 to 5 years. So I was just like, but
Mhm.
still at 3 to 5 years, I'm just like, man, I'm not going to see my son turn 10. And every time I
Yeah.
looked at him, I would break down because like I felt so bad that I wouldn't be there for
Mm.
him. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And from my wife's perspective, it was just like she has something to focus on that's not just me in
Mhm.
raising our toddler son, right? And it's
Mhm.
it's the terrible two, so it's a lot of work to chase him around, and he's going through all of these emotions and stuff like that, like, building that personality. So like it takes a lot of effort, but it also makes it so that she doesn't have to focus on me all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like, having Silas at 40, we were like, man, we're gonna be tired because we're older than most people when they have kids. But then it's just
Yeah.
like it's been a blessing because it's given me the something to hold on to that I can look at
Mhm.
every day, and my
Right.
wife just something else to focus on other than my illness and sickness.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think the prognosis, and, this type of thing is 3 to 5 years. But I'm also younger than most people who
Mhm.
get this, so that
Right.
helps. And I am able to do some type of targeted therapy that's not just normal
Mhm.
chemo. So I don't
Right.
really have a ton of side effects other than, hair thinning.
Mhm.
But besides that, it's really just, dealing with chronic fatigue
Mhm.
and kind of like digestion issues and taste bud issues. So
Mm.
like, it's nothing that I can't get past, although not everything I eat doesn't taste the same anymore, so that kind of sucks. But besides
Right.
that, it's very tolerable for my case. So
Mhm.
hoping that I can just run out the clock on this one in terms of
Yeah.
just live long enough for science and technology to catch up and cure this thing.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's part of where the hope comes in,
Mhm.
and each day trying to choose joy rather
Mhm.
than to get stuck in the loop of what am I going to do before I die, or those types of things, and getting caught in that, and not
Yeah.
being mad at the
Absolutely.
world, because for a
Mhm.
while I was running the numbers and I was pretty pissed off because it's like you look at the probabilities and it's like one in a several million or millions, and you're just like, this is the worst lottery in the world. Why the hell is this happening to me? Out of the millions
Mhm.
and millions and millions of people in the world,
Yeah.
why me? And why when I'm like
Absolutely.
42? And why
Yeah.
my son's 2? And
Yeah.
all those things that you can be bitter about and angry about, and just letting it go, and just focusing on choosing joy every day, building memories with family. When I
Absolutely.
think about it, yeah, I did a video, and it was about living with intent, right? And what is a life
Mhm.
well lived?
Mhm.
It took me a while to just kind of break it all down, but like it's basic. The way I think about it is that people should live with intent and have a set of values that they focus on each day. For me, it's my faith, my health, my family, and service to others. And
Mhm.
when I look through that lens, if there's anything in my life that doesn't fit that, I should
Yeah.
question whether or not it should be in my life. So, in
Mhm,
just
mhm.
living with that intent and having those values helps guide me. The second thing is
Absolutely.
really protecting my heart from comparison. Because, like,
Mhm, mhm.
if I look at myself right now and I compare myself to the somebody who has a great life and is successful and has lots of kids and happy family and blah blah blah
Mhm,
blah and yada yada. No, that's no way to live a healthy life, to compare with other people all the time, right?
mhm.
So protecting myself from like saying like, hey, that person's healthy, I'm not healthy, why
Yeah,
me, right?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
to be okay with the impact that I'm able to influence, right? Like, I
Mhm,
don't know where the channel is going to go. I don't know if it's going to get
mhm.
big one day or if it stays the way it is forever.
Yeah.
But I'm helping people, and I should
Mhm,
be happy with the fact that I'm able to help the people that I'm helping. If it gets bigger, great.
mhm,
If it doesn't get bigger, doesn't really matter. If I can help just one person, it's already been worth it, right? So
mhm,
being
mhm.
okay with our scope of influence, because it's not saying that you shouldn't be ambitious, but even with ambition, not everybody's going to be CEO. Not everybody's
Mhm.
going to be president. Not everybody's going to be whatever. You can have the
Yeah.
ambition, but you should enjoy the journey. If you find yourself
Mhm.
suffering every day on the journey, it's probably not the right journey to be on, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. It's so interesting that you brought that up because we have a set of tools that we've put together called AAR, which is accept, adapt, and rebuild. And it's exactly what you're talking about right now, right? You got to accept the fact that what's happening is happening, right? And then you need to adapt to it. And you've clearly adapted, right? Your mindset shifted where it needs to shift. And then now you're rebuilding, right? Rebuilding yourself with intent of what you're actually looking for. So I mean, these are great tools that these men out here, who don't have hope right now, because a lot of the folks watching this channel, I'm assuming, are going through some kind of either crazy breakup, medical condition, some kind of something, because the shit hits the fan for everybody, right? And it's the matter of if you're sitting inside that being or not, right? It's just different for other people, but everybody's suffering in some form, right? There's a Chinese saying, 人生命苦, right? You're born to suffer, basically. Living is suffering. So
yeah,
it's a matter of what, I see it more of we were placed on this planet to experience different things and enjoy. And so you can choose to be bitter, compare, and wonder, right? Or you can choose to appreciate and figure out what it is that you want. Part of my background is, yeah, I've been CEO for 6 or 7 companies that made 8, 9 figures, but at the same time, I also went bankrupt. I lost a lot more recently, lost connection with my kids. But it's amazing that we all have our hardships to go through. And with tools like AAR and the tools that you've been using, it's something that helped get these people through, right? And get these men to realize that, hey, sometimes you can compare. If it helped you move forward, right? Like what you're sharing here, I'm hoping is gonna help a lot of folks out there to understand. Hey, we all have some. I had brain aneurysm. You had cancer. We're surviving it as far as we know now. We don't know what happens tomorrow, but in the meantime, we can do what we can to help out, and also live our own lives to the fullest extent, right, as we can. So, you mentioned you did question God at the time, right? And at some times, did that actually deepen your faith, you think? Or how has that worked for you?
yeah. I mean, like questioning God, it happens all the time for me because it's kind of like it can be a lot of things, and a lot of people question God about the state of the world, the geopolitical environment, all those types of things. And in the micro, like for me, it's just like, why me? Why am I sick? And I think at the end of the day, when if I look at my faith in totality, um, the Christian faith is all about kind of forgiveness, right? So Jesus died on the cross to forgive the sins of the world, and by believing in that, literally just believing in that, that's your ticket to heaven, right?
Mm,
Because Jesus already paid the price. So I guess there's questioning God in my circumstance, and then choosing to focus on joy in that the price has already been paid and to appreciate what I've been blessed with in my life, right? So I think what it helped me figure out was that there's kind of two things there. There's the circumstance of everyday life that can be up and down and whatever. And then there's the longer term gratitude and appreciation in choosing joy that gets me through all of the circumstances of life. So the way I talk about it in a video is basically the difference between joy and happiness. Happiness is fleeting. It's something that can vary by the hour, by the day, by the second, depending on what's going on with your life. Joy is something that is more meaningful, that drives you, gives you purpose. Like my son, that drives me and gives me purpose, that helps me get through all of the circumstances of everyday life. Or my faith, same thing, right? So when I question God, it's about my circumstance, and I'm like, why? Why me? Why now? But when I'll try pulling myself out of that, focusing and then switching to, no, I should be focused on joy. I should appreciate what I have in life, and I should appreciate all of my blessings and use that to not be stuck in the circumstances that I'm in, right? I think the saying is very true in that in life, it's like what, 10% what happens to you and 90% on how you react to it, right? So like
Absolutely.
just having that mindset of, I'm going to make a conscious choice today, right now, right? Because it really is that you have to choose it, and like every second, every day. Otherwise, you can get stuck. And when you get stuck, it can be hard to pull yourself out of that. I learned that every day I have to choose joy. Every hour I have to choose joy, but it is my choice.
An interesting tool that we have is the ability to, as humans, we have the ability to choose to zoom out on a situation, right? If you're not so micro and then you go by much macro scale, you zoom out like you're looking down, whether it's from God's perspective or from a different top down, or even on a timeline, because you mentioned earlier geopolitical problems and people, the state of the world. If you really think about it, the world's never been safer than it is today, ever. The world has never been more convenient, right? Like lives haven't been easier than they are today, ever, right? If you rewind it 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, it's never been easier today. What kings and queens used to have, right? You're able to order anything from Uber, right? If you want to eat anything, you have a chef, right? You can eat anything you want. You just got to put it in your app. Before, you had to be a CEO or a high-ranking, company officer, just filthy rich to have a chauffeur. Now you click Uber and they're at your front door and they pick you up, right? Within 3 minutes. So, I mean, life has never been easier. People just need to remember to zoom out, right? And it goes down to like, are there still a lot of poor people? Absolutely. Are there people starving? Absolutely. Is it as much as it was 10 years ago? Probably not. I mean, unfortunately, you probably see more in Thailand than we see here, right? How poor really is. The people here, I don't feel like they're poor at all compared to what I've seen in Thailand,
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
and
They
other
never
third world
seem
countries.
real poor.
Yeah, they never seen real, especially sitting outside of the palace.
Yeah,
Right. They're
yeah,
sitting across the street, and they're fishing out of a bayou, right, or a sewage thing, and they're eating the fish out of it. So I mean, it's bad. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, so it's just one of those things that people have to remember to zoom out, right, and it helps you appreciate what's happening, and you realize you are that little ant, right, and you're lucky because you're aware that you're the little ant, right? You're not your body, you're not your mind, right? You're something else. You're this energy, and when it's our time to go, it's our time to go. But while we're here, we're able to experience it yourself, and B, help those who want to be helped as much as you can. And I know that runs in your philosophy in your household as well. It always ran in ours, right? Whether it was charity or whatever it was, even though we went through some rough times, rough neighborhoods, like you said, outcasted, or not outcasted, but just being the different one, Bruce Lee in your schools in Texas, right? Because I ran through the same things, right? Where you just had to fight being called a ching chong boy, So that's just one of those things where yeah, it does feel different when you move into where you're the majority, right? Where people can't tell. And here's the difference: you do actually have an advantage when you're in Thailand because you're an expat from the United States, and they honor that in The US does the opposite, right? You come, you learn the language, you do all you can try, and it doesn't make you part of them, right? Where you integrate much faster with the advantages when we go to Asia. So anyhow, let's get back to where we were. What's the biggest takeaway you want someone facing their own diagnosis to hear?
Um, I think it's life's not over. I mean, I think a lot of times when people get a diagnosis and a bad one, they spin out, and that's the worst thing that you can do, honestly. Like, because your mindset is so important to be able to beat any type of disease, any type of illness. The mindset, like, it's kind of like if you have a strong enough mindset, you can overcome most things. And it definitely has a major impact on how quickly and how well you recover. If you give up, that's kind of it, right? Like, because like if you give up and you say I'm dead, I'm just going to wallow in pity and just let it happen to me, then you know it'll happen. It's kind of like a mind over matter type of scenario. You
Hmm.
have to be mentally strong. You have to think about or find that joy and choose it every second, every hour, every day, because it's a constant battle.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you will slip up. There will be times where you will spend an afternoon wallowing in pity, and that's okay. You need to process your emotions, right? You need to be able to feel and process these things. But give it the afternoon, and the next day choose joy. Every morning choose joy. Remember that there's a lot of blessings in this world. There's a lot of things to live for. Like you said, it's one of the best times to be alive. I mean, like, especially if you're in the US, like you win kind of like the global lottery just by growing up in a West or being born into a Western country,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So like
Yeah.
there's so many things to be thankful for and to be grateful for. Just don't let the diagnosis become your identity. Just figure
Hmm.
out how to choose joy every day and whatever it takes to pull you out of that. If it's your faith, great. If it's your family, great. If it's your dog, great. Whatever it might be, choose joy every day and don't let the diagnosis consume you.
So now that you've got a baby boy, he's what, 2 years now, new life right after facing death, right? How has becoming a dad changed your outlook on survival and purpose?
If I didn't have Silas, it'd be much harder because I wouldn't have a by the minute, by the hour reminder of why I'm alive. People always talk about how having kids is a different kind of happiness and how it brings meaning to your life. And you don't really understand what that means until you actually have kids, right? And then all of a sudden, you care about something more than you care about yourself. And that meaning gives you reason to deal with the toughest circumstances that you likely wouldn't have been able to get through as easily without it, right? Like, there's never been a day or a second or an hour where I question, like, do I need to live on for my family? The answer
Hmm.
is always unequivocally yes, I need to. I have my son.
Yeah.
I want to be there. I want to be there to guide him. I want to make sure that he grows up with the right values. And it's without him, I just don't. It would just be that much more difficult because I would need to be able to figure out what else can be that daily, hourly, by the second reminder that I'm choosing every single day. And
Hmm.
so, the only other thing I could think of would be my faith, because that'd be the
Yeah.
only other constant that I'd be choosing. Oh, and my wife. Sorry, my wife too. If she ever sees this video, yes, my wife. I would choose my wife as well. But I think having my son has really changed my entire perspective. Caring about something more than you care about yourself, it doesn't really come that easily. But as soon as you have a child and you hold it for the first time, you're just like, it's instant. You're just like, oh yeah, it's not even close, right? Like, I think I saw something where it was like the guy that plays Deadpool. He said, like,
Mm.
as soon as he had his kid, he's like, oh yeah, I love this kid more than anything. It's like, and he was joking, but half joking. It's like, if there was a shooter, I would use my wife as a human shield to protect my child.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like,
It's
I don't
okay. She's
know.
a marvel, right?
Yeah, it's like it may be coded into our genetics and biological or whatever, but it's just like, yeah, I would do anything. It's like it wouldn't even be a question. Like if a car was coming, throw my son out of the way, take the hit. Like
Mhm,
easy. I don't even need to think about it. It's just like boom, be done, right?
mhm,
And with that, it's just kind of like I want to be there for this kid. I want to make sure
mhm,
that he has the best life possible within reason, and
mhm.
having that
Yeah.
constant reminder is definitely like the blessing and the thing that helps give me that motivation to just fight on and have the right mindset and continue to be as disciplined as I can be with my recovery.
So if your son listens to this one day, what do you want him to know about who his dad was when things got hard?
I think probably that he gave me strength to fight on, and that his dad was a man of faith, and that he was loved, right? If I'm assuming I'm
Mhm.
not here, like that he was loved, and that it's hard to think about, right? If you're not here one day for your children, it's just like it's very painful. Like I said, when it first happened, when I first found out, I couldn't look at my son without crying for months. But yeah, I would want him to know that his dad was a man of faith, and that he loved, he was loved, and he was wanted,
Right.
and that
Mhm.
we went as far as 11 IVF treatments and surrogacy just to get him into our lives, and that I want him to be able to find the joy in everyday life and to be happy, and
Mhm.
that I will always support him in anything that he does. And if there's any way I could be watching over him, I would be.
So what kind of man do you hope he becomes because of how he's seen you rebuild?
I hope he becomes a man that can think of others and show empathy for the world, and not be hindered by ideals of toxic masculinity, um, and be more evolved as a human being. Like, I think the person I am now versus the person I was 20 years ago, I would want him to be the person I am now that can show empathy and compassion and is more self aware, and isn't just, grinding every day for an idea of a man that isn't even worth pursuing. Like, and is able to do it, and not that I don't want him to be ambitious or successful, that's not it. I just want him to do it in a way that's healthy versus some of the stuff that or some of the ideals that I started out with. But yeah, I think that would be it. I would want him to be a healthy, mentally healthy, happy, joyful individual that can help others in the world.
It's great. So you lived through more in the past few years than most people face in a lifetime, and moving halfway across the world, supporting your wife through depression, surviving cancer, and now raising a baby. What does rebuilding look like for you now?
I think it's that there's a certain amount of what is the future, right? What does the future hold? So it's the prognosis is 3 to 5 years. With treatment, it can be longer. Eh, And rebuilding is kind of like thinking about what my goals are again at this point, right? Because like when you're healthy, it's like you're thinking in terms of like decades and setting ambitious goals because you have time. When it shrinks down to 6 months, you're like, okay, I got to cut out all these goals, and then you have to deal with the grief of losing all of this ambition. And then now you have 3 to 5 years or potentially longer, and you're just like, okay, it's a bit uncertain, but how do I set goals to achieve, to motivate myself in the future? What do I want to achieve? Like the
Mhm,
living with intent. Yes, that I have my values, but like, how do I operationalize them towards a goal I want to achieve? And how do I set that goal? Because the goal could have a timeline that's 6 months, 1 year, 3 years,
mhm,
5 years, 10 years,
mhm,
whatever it might be. And for me, it's really trying to think about how I can set up the structure or procedures in place to achieve goals I want to achieve in the future, but really
mhm,
influence rather than think about achieving everything, because there's a little bit of uncertainty there.
mhm,
So it's about working towards potentially longer term goals and figuring out how I can set up the structures to influence how I achieve them, and if I can't take them to fruition, to allow it so that my family can continue them on without me if I can't be there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
So it's
yeah,
what's interesting is because mine was down to 10 days, right? Like what are you gonna do in the next 10 days to not die? Right. Not a whole lot of time. When
yeah,
I found out, it's like, do you say something? Do you not? What's the deal? And what I learned was, there's a lot of tools that we can use. One is zooming out, of course. The other thing is there's legacy, right? Which is what you want to leave behind versus what you're able to do today. And legacy is definitely important. Although if you look back in history, past your grandfather, what do you know about them? These folks from 100 years ago, you're not going to remember. So how important is legacy really? I don't know. But how you're able to affect the people who are around you now with these tools and not thinking about the time limitation, your own time limitation, right? Because the thing is, only God knows that, right? Nobody else knows when your time is up. And your time could have been up. My time could have been up already. Looking back, I actually know I was just going through mortality recently. Kind of actually part of it was finding people to interview, a couple weeks ago, or maybe even a couple days ago. And I realized that maybe 30 people that are my age or younger are no longer here that I completely forgot about. We grieve when it happens. We grieved when it happened, and then you forget. And then as you're going through your Facebook and going through your little, your phone book, and then you're like, I never deleted him out of here. And holy shit, he's been gone for 6 years. He's been gone for 10. This guy died 2 years ago, and I found out. And then you realize that doesn't matter how you plan. You don't have to plan that far forward. You got to go in a direction, and of
yeah,
course, we have to have our goals. But at the same time, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you don't know. You don't know. And my father passed away last October, which triggered a lot of things for me, for my mortality as well, right? Of learning to enjoy life again, moving forward, what we can do to enjoy ourselves, appreciate what's happening, do what we can. And I realized that, my mom and dad were glued at the hip, almost like your parents were, right? Or are. And when dad passed, mom was having a real hard time making decisions, where to stay and, all those type of things, because she's now 80 and she can't be on her own. So she's either with me or with my sister. But part of those decision making, she was also planning a child, like, oh, what am I going to do? I was like, you plan it 6 months at a time, right? Don't make anything too permanent because you don't know. And in
yeah,
life, that is already the case regardless. So you could walk outside and get in an accident. The MRT could fall off of the track. You don't know.
yeah,
Anything can happen. Yeah, I mean, we hear stranger things every day, right? So, our suggestion, one of the tools that we have is, yeah, you do got to remember that you have mortality just so you remember to live. Because what do they say? Oh, the past is past already. The future's not here yet, and you're only in the present. That's why they call it. That's your gift, right? It's
yeah.
your present. So you just got to remember to stay in the present. So that's great. And so, what kind of tools or habits help you keep your faith when everything was uncertain and still?
I think I just because I grew up in a Christian household. My grandfather was a pastor, and his father was actually a Christian too. It's
Mm.
always been natural for me to kind of lean into my faith in times of need. And for me, that's just in really challenging times. It may just be going to church or listening to sermons or on YouTube or reading the Bible and those types of things to look for signs, I guess. When I lean
Hmm.
into my faith, it's usually I'm going through something and looking for some type of sign or some type of indication of how I should proceed, or how I should think about it, or those types of things. And I think whether it's church or scripture or whatever way I consume it, there's always been something that has been that resonates with me, that uh, helps me understand what I should do next, and or take comfort in the fact that there is a plan, or that this too shall pass, or I can do all things through Christ. Like, there's always something that I can draw on for inspiration. And it's just natural for me to kind of lean into, any of those tools, whether it's, going to church or going to group or reading the Bible or watching sermons. But yeah, I think any of those things have helped me in the past. But yeah, I guess it just depends on the person.
Okay.
If you're an introvert, maybe reading scripture. If you're an extrovert,
Mhm.
maybe joining a church group. and getting support. There's a lot of things that, out there that offer support that we don't always take advantage of.
And what takeaways would you want someone listening to hold on to, especially if they're in their own storm right now?
I think for everybody,
Gotcha.
the main thing is really kind of find their joy, that thing that's meaningful to them, that gives them purpose, and to choose it every day. What helps me a bit is that I have like daily affirmations and stuff like that that I look at every day. And if you have a daily affirmation that you read every day, or go back to as you need it throughout the day, that can be a way to continuously keep your mind centered on the right thing and not spin out, right? So I think something that my boss at work told me is that even personifying and naming it, those negative thoughts can be helpful. And so it's kind of like a mental trick.
Mhm,
Basically,
mhm.
I personified my negative thoughts as like this green kind of blob called Vigo. And anytime that I find myself thinking unhealthy thoughts, like comparing, or gun dying or whatever, I basically tell myself mentally, and I typically don't say it out loud, but it's basically like, "Shut up, Vigo! Shut up, Vigo!" And it's like, "Vigo, just get the hell out of here." And for some reason, personifying it and giving it a name and telling it to go away helps kind of flip your mindset a little bit. So it's something that's helped me. So maybe if other people can draw from that, just name it, personify it, and tell it to go away. Or my main thing is just shut up, Vigo. I keep repeating it tons of times in my head until I kind of focus on something else.
And I think that's a great tool. That's a great tool. So, Roland, man, from helping me sling drywall in Houston to building a new life in Thailand, surviving cancer, and now becoming a dad, you lived what Rebuild Dad is about: faith, endurance, and heart. And thank you for being here and for opening up. I know your words are going to help a lot of men out there find their footing again. So, thank you very much. Thanks. Thanks, guys. Roland didn't just survive, he shared his fight while he's still in it. He turned the pain into purpose, fear into faith, and struggles into something that will outlive him. Here's what I hope you take away from this conversation. One, strength doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's a quiet act of courage done in the dark. Two, faith doesn't erase fear. It helps you keep walking through it. And three, leaving a legacy isn't about what you have. It's about who you become while you're rebuilding. And maybe most of all, when life hits you hard, talk about it. Silence might protect your image, but it can't heal your heart. If this episode spoke to you, drop a comment or message me directly. Tell me what topics you want covered next. Or if you got a story of your own, reach out, because Rebuild Dad isn't just a show, it's a brotherhood, a place where men tell the truth and share their struggles and rise again, one story at a time. So, wherever you are right now, take a breath, do the next right thing, and remember, you can always start again stronger.